Most people assumed pirates just suffered through dehydration, but the reality is they got damn good at solving water problems, problems that kept them alive when everything else wanted them dead. Here's the brutal truth about seawater. It'll kill you faster than thirst ever could. Your body can't handle it. That salt content is 3 times what your kidneys can process, so when you drink it, your body panics. It pulls water from your cells trying to dilute the salt, and you end up losing more fluid than you took in. It's fighting fire with gasoline, and it doesn't end well. Pirates learned this the hard way, usually at the cost of crew members who thought they could get away with a few gulps. Ships back then were tight wooden boxes with limited storage. Fresh water took up massive space in barrels, and captains had to choose between carrying drinking water or trade goods and weapons. Most chose supplies and figured they'd solve water later. Terrible call. Crews watched their reserves shrink day after day. Desperate sailors would sneak sips of seawater when nobody was looking, and within hours they'd be violently ill, cramping up, dysentery, hallucinating. Some swore they saw freshwater springs on the horizon that didn't exist. The smart captains got it quickly. Thirst could destroy a crew faster than any enemy ship. Stories circulated through every port about vessels found drifting empty, crews dead from dehydration, surrounded by infinite water. These weren't just tales to scare new sailors, they were warnings. Clean water became more valuable than gold. Captains guarded water barrels like treasure chests because that's exactly what they were. When supplies ran low, even loyal crew members would turn violent. Mutinies started over water rations more often than unfair treasure splits. Blackbeard himself said his biggest fear wasn't the Royal Navy, it was running out of drinking water with 2 weeks left at sea. The irony cut deep. Pirates spent their lives chasing gold and silver, but the most precious liquid on their ships was colorless and tasteless. Water meant survival. Everything else became possible only after that. But here's where it gets interesting. Successful pirates didn't just accept their situation, they got creative. Once they understood that seawater was essentially liquid death, they started improvising. Their first instinct was obvious: look at the sky and hope for rain. But they couldn't just stand around with their mouths open. Smart crews rigged up elaborate rainwater collection systems using whatever they had. Tarps and sails became giant funnels stretched tight across the deck, positioned so every drop flowed down into barrels instead of splashing uselessly back into the ocean. The trick was keeping those sails clean first. Using dirty canvas was like trying to drink through a salt-soaked sock. So crews developed washing routines, using precious fresh water to clean their canvas before any storm. It seemed wasteful, but it beat tasting brine for weeks. Pirates also got surprisingly good at improvised plumbing. They'd fashion channels and spouts from wood, scraps, rope, and metal pieces, makeshift systems that funneled every drop straight into storage. Some crews got so efficient they could collect dozens of gallons during a single good storm. When rain didn't come, they turned to dew collection. Soak a sheepskin or thick cloth overnight in the humid sea air, and come morning, you'd wring out a few cups of collected moisture. Not much, but when you're dying of thirst, every drop counts. The real problem was simple. Weather doesn't cooperate with schedules. Ships could go weeks without decent rain, especially in certain parts of the Caribbean. The best crews combined techniques: permanent rain systems plus rotating dew collection duties. They treated water collection like a military operation, with specific jobs and consequences for slacking. And honestly, when conditions were right, these methods worked remarkably well. But relying entirely on weather meant gambling with lives. They needed something reliable, something they could control even when the sky stayed stubbornly clear for weeks. Even when pirates successfully collected water, storing it turned into a nightmare. Every ship carried massive oak barrels called butts. Yes, that was the actual name, capable of holding 50 gallons or more, sealed tight with pitch and tar. But water sitting in wood doesn't stay water for long. The wood rotted from the inside, turning precious drinking water into slimy, foul-smelling sludge that tasted like pond scum mixed with old socks.
Bacteria loved these dark, moist wooden homes, and the barrels had another problem. They weren't new. They'd held everything from beer to rum to who knows what else. Your fresh water would absorb the previous flavors. Stale ale one day, rancid rum the next. Within days, sometimes hours in hot weather, carefully collected rainwater turned into toxic soup. The irony was cruel. You could die of thirst while surrounded by barrels full of liquid that would make you sicker than anything else. Pirates started experimenting out of sheer desperation. Some tried adding sand or cloth to barrel bottoms as filters. Others rotated water constantly between containers to prevent any single barrel from getting too disgusting. These were band-aids on the wound that needed real solutions. Then someone figured out the answer: fire. Burning the inside of wooden barrels before filling them with water sounds insane. It was genius. The process was simple. Light controlled fires inside empty oak barrels, let flames blacken the interior wood, stop before the barrel falls apart. The resulting charred layer acted like nature's own filter system. That blackened surface grabbed nasty particles and bacteria, actually slowing microbial growth. It worked. Water stored in charred barrels stayed cleaner for weeks instead of days. And pirates stumbled onto something we still use today. Modern whiskey and bourbon makers char their barrels for exactly these reasons. Pirates weren't trying to make fancy drinks. They just wanted water that wouldn't kill them. The method spread fast because it saved lives. Word travels at every port when you find something that keeps your crew from dying or getting poisoned. Captains started ordering men to char every barrel before long voyages. But charring had limitations. It couldn't fix truly contaminated water, and the process ate up precious wood and fire materials. They needed backup plans. That's when someone discovered the silver coin trick. Tossing silver coins into water barrels wasn't superstition, it was accidental brilliance. Pirates noticed that barrels containing silver stayed clearer longer. The water didn't turn that nasty green color as fast. It didn't reek after 2 weeks at sea. They didn't know they were using one of nature's most powerful antibacterial agents. Silver kills bacteria. Modern science explains it through silver ions disrupting bacterial cell walls, but pirates just knew their water lasted longer when precious metals sat at the bottom. Some crews swore the silver-treated water tasted better too. Cleaner, less like drinking liquefied wood. They'd argue about which coins worked best. Spanish silver seemed popular, though nobody could explain why. Maybe it was purer, maybe it was psychology. Didn't matter. The smart captains hoarded silver specifically for this. Food could run out, rum could disappear, but water was life or death. And silver had practical advantages. It didn't dissolve or rot like other additives. Pirates could fish out their coins, rinse them off, and reuse them. Recycling at its finest. Modern hospitals still use silver for the same antibacterial properties. Water purification systems often include silver components now. Silver wasn't perfect, though. It worked best as prevention, not cure. Smart pirates added their coins to fresh water immediately, not after problems started. And when storms lasted weeks and supplies ran dangerously low, even silver couldn't save them. They needed something more dramatic. That's when they turned to distillation. Boiling seawater and catching the steam, letting it cool back into fresh water while salt stays behind, is simple in theory, but doing it on a rocking ship with limited fuel? Absolute nightmare. Captain Bartholomew Roberts, one of the most successful pirates ever, ordered a special distillation rig built right into his ship. His crew thought he'd lost his mind until they realized this contraption could save their lives during endless weeks at sea. The setup used copper pots heated over carefully controlled fires with metal pans positioned to catch every precious drop of condensed steam. These rigs needed constant attention. One mistake could start a ship fire. Pirates had to balance keeping the flame hot enough for steam without burning down their only way to escape: high-stakes cooking. The fuel problem was massive. Every piece of wood burned for distillation couldn't be used for cooking or emergency repairs. Desperate crews burned furniture, spare rope, old boots, anything that generated heat. The smell must have been horrific. And these stills were slow, maybe a few cups per hour if you were lucky. A crew of 30 needed gallons daily just to survive, let alone stay healthy enough to fight or sail.
Smart pirates timed their distillation runs during calm weather, when the ship wasn't pitching. Some crews took shifts staying awake all night to keep the process running continuously. The copper tubing came from melted down coins, jewelry, even stolen church items. Ironic had plundered treasure literally became their lifeline. Copper worked better than other metals. It conducted heat efficiently and didn't rust in salt air. When fuel ran low or storms made fire too risky, pirates got even more creative. Some crews mixed a bit of rum or wine into their water barrels, not for getting drunk, though that was probably a nice bonus. The alcohol slowed down the bacteria that made water taste like swamp juice. It acted as a preservative, keeping water drinkable through longer stretches. Others swore by vinegar. The acidic bite fought off harmful microbes and masked awful tastes. They'd toss in citrus peels when available, cinnamon, cloves, anything that covered the funky flavors brewing in those wooden containers. The really desperate tried filtering murky water through sand in cloth bags or using pieces of bread as makeshift filters. Did it work? Sometimes. Was it gross? Absolutely. Some sailors made what they called pirate coffee, weak rum, questionable water, and random herbs scavenged from islands, mint, strange berries, ground tree bark, anything to make the water situation bearable. It probably tasted awful, but it beat dying of thirst. Not every experiment worked. Some pirates tried lead pipes and lead-lined pots, thinking the metal would keep things fresh. They didn't know that lead slowly poisoned anyone who drank from it. They'd get sick and weak without understanding why their improved setup was actually killing them. Trial and error cost lives, but it also led to real discoveries. The most innovative captains didn't stop with filtering and flavoring. Some experimented with techniques that went way beyond the basics. When standard distillation wasn't enough, they used animal bladders for solar distillation. Fill one with seawater, tie it shut, hang it in direct sunlight. The heat caused evaporation inside, and fresh water droplets collected on the inner walls. Pierce a small hole and drain the condensed water. Gross? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Some crews discovered that burying clay pots filled with seawater created natural evaporation chambers. The Earth's steady temperature and the pot's porous surface worked together like a slow still. Seawater gradually seeped through the clay walls, leaving salt crystals behind while cleaner water collected nearby. Then there's the seaweed trick that sounds almost too weird. Certain kelps and seaweeds could help separate salt from water naturally. Mix them with seawater and let it sit. The plants would absorb salts while releasing cleaner liquid. The process wasn't perfect, but it reduced saltiness enough to make emergency drinking water possible. Marine plants became living filters. Some captains figured out they could repurpose massive ship cannons as heat exchangers for faster distillation. Run pipes through or around the cannon barrels, heat the metal with fire, and seawater flowing through would turn to steam much quicker than traditional methods. The cannon's mass held heat longer, making the whole process more efficient. Weapons of war became lifelines. In colder northern waters, pirates developed emergency ice melting techniques that were surprisingly sophisticated. Sea ice naturally contains less salt than liquid seawater. They'd collect it, melt it down in controlled batches. Fresh snow was even better, almost pure water, just waiting to be melted. Some crews built special ice collection nets and scoops specifically for this. These advanced methods separated the amateurs from the real survival experts. While landlubbers worried about treasure maps, seasoned pirates were mastering chemistry and physics without knowing it. They turned their ships into floating laboratories, where every experiment could mean the difference between life and death. The most successful pirate crews weren't just good at fighting, they were brilliant at staying alive through innovation, determination, and some seriously clever water wizardry. That's what separated the captains who made fortunes from the ones whose names nobody remembers.